Hi, my name is Aaron Pigors, and today I'm going to show you how to make a Lifecard, a 3D magic card with a dial-down life counter. This is the finished product, and you can see how it works. The edges are a bit rough yet, but those can get cleaned up. As you can see, it's sort of a shadowbox style and involves cutting out and arranging a stack of several copies of one card. The whole project just takes a few hours, and that's including time for the glue to dry. So let's get started. These are all of the supplies you need. Of course, a flat, clean work area and a decent cutting surface is the best spot to do this project. You'll also need a craft glue, and I always use this tacky glue. A permanent marker, some small clamps or paper clips, an X-Acto knife with a few spare blades, one brass fastener. Make sure the prongs aren't too long. A ½ inch to an inch is perfect. Some fine-tipped colored markers, and of course, the magic cards. It's optimal to use 15 to 20 copies of the same card, but at very least 6 or 7 of your art card with some fill cards in between to stack the layers deeper. When picking out a card, look closely at the artwork. The best cards for this are ones with striking art, some depth to the scene, and elements that seem to pop out. I like this rush of blood for the arms and ribbons, and also the vampires standing out from the background so well. Now that you have your supplies and have picked out a card, the layers have to be planned out. I sketched out a rough idea of what each layer should be. The ribbon is out front, and then the arm and ribbon is the next to front layer. The back ribbon and her clothes would be next. Then the vampire's body, and then her throat and rear arm. After that, we'd throw in several filler cards to separate her from the background, and then add some depth to the background too. The last card in the stack is a full, uncut card. Keep in mind, this is a guideline, and things usually change when you actually cut and layer the cards. I like to work from the background forward so you can see the stacks building. So I'll cut part of the background out, basically removing the bright red, the furthest away part of the background. Now you can see how it will stack against the back. We also want to make our cuts integrate with the art as much as possible, so I grab a red fine tip marker and color the edges of the cut to red instead of white. Now when you layer them, it looks much better. For the next layer, we want to give the subject a lot of separation from the background. So I'll stack our visible layer up front with a couple of fill cards behind, clamp them, and cut all 3 at the same time. Make sure you have a very sharp blade for this method. This is the furthest backed subject layer, and it will be the layer we see the rear arm and the smoke. I'll have to be very precise on those parts. The rest of the body will have stacks on top of it. So I'll grab a new blade and begin, using my sketch as a guide and making sure to be very careful on the arm and smoke especially. If I make a mistake on the face, it's okay because it will be covered with another layer. So you've seen how to plan, cut a basic card, and cut a layer of cards. Just repeat the steps for the rest of the cards. And remember to color your cut lines with the markers. At the end, you'll have a stack of scrap, a few dull blades, and a dozen or so cut up cards that when stacked, make a really nice 3D image. So the artwork is basically done, and now it's time to make the life dial. I create mine in Adobe Illustrator. For your convenience, here is a link to both the AI file and a PDF for you to use. Both are sized correctly. The PDF is ready to print, and the AI file can be modified for color customization, font, whatever. So print out your sheet. I use a light cardstock on a color laser printer. It's still a bit flimsy though, so I will attach it to a magic card, lay the dial over the card, trace, and cut it out. Then we use the craft glue to attach them. Set it aside and press it to dry. Now stack your cards into 5 piles, 2 or more for the back, then 4 to set the fastener in, 1 for a slot for the fastener arms, and then 5 or so to fit the dial into. Then the rest can go on top for the window. In a few more minutes, your dial will be dry. Cut out a very small hole in the center, just enough for the fastener to break through. You don't want any wiggle room. Now for the top layer, I cut out the text boxes to make a nice frame. This can also serve as a measurement tool to help guide you in the placement of the spinner on the rear cards. Lay the frame over a card on your second stack, the one we're cutting out to lay the fastener into. Set the fastener on the middle of that card, resting against the frame on the bottom. That gives you a perfect placement for the spinner. Trace the fastener and cut out a tight circle. Cut out the fastener hole in all 4 cards. Make sure the fastener fits snugly and trim more if necessary. This is a perfect fit. Now glue the rear 6 cards together and press them to dry. Wait a while, and once dry, we can get the next layer started. Now is when we glue the fastener in and slot it through the next card. Measure it carefully. Use the frame to get the cut right. Test it out and make any adjustments as necessary. Now we can glue the fastener in its hole, slip the arms through the slit and glue that down. The fastener will push up on the stack, so I like to clamp the cards at the bottom near the fastener. Press the rest and let it dry. While that's drying, I can cut out the space for the dial to go. Just lay the dial down and trace a wide space around it. This is one time we do want to give it some wiggle room. At the bottom, just go straight down. Don't follow the curve in. It can snag the dial, and we want to let it move as smoothly as possible. When it's cut out, check to make sure you gave it space. Then glue these together and attach this layer stack to your already drying back layers with the fastener. This time, it's the narrow sides that tend to curl up, so move the clamps here, then press the rest to dry. While that's drying, we can customize the dial window and put the finishing touches on the frontmost layers, our last stack of cards. The text for Rush of Blood is a bit lengthy, and it won't look great cutting a box out of a word in the rules text. So for aesthetics, I will replace the text box with a classic mountain land box. This way, the life total will be in the center of the red mana symbol, much better than being muddled in text. So we cut out the text boxes from the front stack of cards. Keep the framing intact. This will give the card a nice framed shadow box look. Then do the opposite for the mountain. Remove the artwork, but keep the lower box intact. Now you can see how it looks with the Rush of Blood artwork on the red mana box. Much cleaner. When the fastener stack is dry, we just have to measure and cut out the little window that displays our life on the dial. Measure carefully and make a small window first, trimming as needed. You can always cut more away. You can't repair it if you've cut too much. Test the dial. Make sure you can read all the numbers and that the dial moves smoothly but isn't too loose. Adjust the fastener and the window as necessary. When all of the final adjustments are made, stack your frontmost layers together and glue them carefully. These will be your thinnest layers and also the most visible, so make sure everything is lined up well and don't use too much glue. Now clamp, press, and dry. It should dry for at least an hour, maybe 2. Here is our life card after it's dry. You can pick at the dried glue with a knife or even just by scraping the edges with your fingernail. And here are some other 3D life card examples. I'd like to thank Dale Venkus and Chris Martin for initially showing me how to make these 3D life cards. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your life card project.